What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks, post-game Locked On Bucks, and I've got a little bit of a smile on my face, but I would say that this game against the Philadelphia 36ers was more painful than I guess we probably hoped it would have been, particularly with the Bucks having a losing streak there. They really just needed to pick up a win, and of course, this was one of the rare occasions, I think, this year where an opposition team actually had a longer injury list than the Bucks, so it was a must-win, but it took right until the final few minutes to beat the Sixers here. Giannis was great. Grayson Allen was great. But there's some interesting talking points from this game, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Fittman. I'm laughing about something I was about to do, Frank. I'm already making myself laugh, which is pretty easy to do. But you can find me and hear me and see me and everything else on this show daily, and also find my work over at ESPN and NBA Australia. And joining me is the founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. We thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it, Frank. I was laughing because I had planned to do they give you some things that you can say or do, like when you have these lines to the start of the show, and it says that you can either like make a choice to say I'm loving it, or you can go like ba-da-ba-ba-ba, whatever the sound is. So I actually was trying to remember as the intro video was winding up there what the sound was, and then I just started cracking up laughing. So whatever. Anyway, embarrassing stuff. The Bucks win this game 118-109. It could have been embarrassing stuff if they weren't able to pick up this win, but they did win. They're 5-6, which is important because obviously they have the back-to-back in New York tomorrow. But this was certainly a game where I was watching thinking, geez, they're going to do it, aren't they? You know, Tyrese Maxey is going to hit a couple of threes. Danny Green's going to get hot. The Cork Man is going to knock down a few shots late in the fourth quarter. Thankfully, it didn't happen. Giannis was really, for a lot of this game, just trying to physically overwhelm the Philadelphia 76ers. He had a massive night. Grayson Allen came up with some clutch shots, and they survived. And honestly, you know, we've spoke about it. It wasn't perfect. We can get into the reasons why, but they just needed a win. They needed to win. They picked it up, and it was a bit of relief almost at the end of this game. Okay, they're back on the winners list. This was really important.
Yeah, I think the 9-point final score, I think that was the biggest lead they had all game. A bit flattering, given how hard they made it on themselves. But as you said, I mean, when you're 4-6, and you know, Philly obviously having had a really good start in spite of, you know, off-season of turmoil, the disappointment of the way they exited last year's playoffs, the Ben Simmons distraction, and now Joel Embiid joining Tobias Harris on the injured list with the COVID stuff. Yeah, I mean, you had to win this game. There really was not going to be any excuse. And I was having kind of a little bit of flashbacks to the game last year where Embiid was also out. And Ben Simmons was available, and I think Tobias Harris, I think, was also in that game. And the Bucks needed overtime to win, even though they were full strength, and didn't feel like a very satisfying way to win. And that game also, I think Giannis had only 2 or 4 points in the first half. He wasn't quite as bad in this first half, but really slow start for Giannis, and I would say not a great game from him by his standards, but just sort of goes to show how high the standard is for him, and the fact that when you're a player as elite and at that very top of the heap in terms of the best players in the world, you can really not have your A game. His jump shot, his free throw shooting has kind of not been there these last couple games, but just sort of sheer force of will, he ends up just getting it done. Came up big in the second half and in the fourth quarter, and those 2 blocks on switches when he had, I think it was Shake Milton on the first one and Tyrese Maxey on the second. Just sort of showing yeah, I mean, even when he's not playing that well, he ends up at the night at 31 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple blocks, and it felt like the Bucks were lost when he wasn't on the court, especially with Jrue Holiday continuing to struggle offensively as he fortunately has continue to look like playoff Drew Holiday here these last couple of games since coming back from the injury. Still is not finding his rhythm, but fortunately, Giannis's bar is extremely high even when he's not at his top game. And Grayson Allen was terrific tonight, and Bobby Portis also starting to really come around offensively in his second game as a starter as well. So not a work of art, not something to write home about this game, but as you said, a necessary win, and you got enough contributions from other guys, including obviously Grayson, Bobby, and also Semi Ojeleye, question mark. That was also a much needed boost, especially given that he hit some threes when the Bucks were kind of just struggling to get anything going.
I think Shemi's 11 points. There might have been a bucket in the second half, but I think most of them came in the first half, which was when they were down 48-35 there at one point. But just to continue on with Giannis, I mean, you mentioned it wasn't his best game, and certainly from an efficiency standpoint, I would agree. I mean, he gets to 31 and 16, which is obviously a huge night, 12 for 26 from the field. And you mentioned the free throw struggles, only 7 for 13. But this is really what separates him. And this is why he is who he is and why he's a superstar. But also why, if you're a Bucks fan, there is at least a little bit of concern about the minutes he's playing and the load he's having to carry, because he just won't stop. And this was a game where, look, he was struggling. But particularly when he was on Niang there for a while, every time he got the ball, he's just like, give me the damn ball, and I'm going to be like a bull, like a raging bull, and I'm just going to charge at him. And the physical toll that takes just has to be incredible. Like, he has to be exhausted out there. But he was like, we are not losing this game. Just give me the damn ball, and I'm going to go at this guy. And I was lip reading there, but I think it was during the third quarter when Niang sort of turned around and he was talking to the official. But I like to personally think that he was just talking to the air, to the sky. He was just like, what am I supposed to do? Because there was nothing he could do at that point with the way Giannis was attacking him. And funnily enough, I actually thought that, Paul Reed, as annoying as it was that he was like talking a little bit of shit after one block, and then things turned pretty quickly for him and he didn't do much after that. But he actually probably defended Giannis the best. Outside of that, Niang had no luck. Andre Drummond is just I don't even know what's the point of even having him out there. I actually had a flashback in the first quarter. I heard through the mic that Andre Drummond did the hell no when Giannis shot the ball. And it reminded me back to the first round series a couple of years ago where Drummond was about a minus 120 in 4-game sweep. So, Andre Drummond, you would think he would have stopped doing that, but here we are. He still somehow has the self-confidence. And in an era where people sometimes do struggle with, self-confidence and getting themselves fired up, at least that's something for Drummond to take home.
Yeah, it's a sort of funny. I mean, Andre Drummond tonight, 17 points, 20 rebounds. Hey, really good Andre Drummond night. But it's just like, and again, you always want to be careful not to over-index on single game plus minus, but they're minus 12 with him on the floor. And
yeah,
I don't know, it's felt like this for years with me. Like, I just like the Bucks odds better when Andre Drummond's on the floor. And of course, he's going to get some tip-ins. He had 7 of the Sixers' 13 offensive rebounds tonight.
It felt early, didn't it? I don't know if you feel like early. It looked like he was going to have a monster night. Then it just kind of tailed off.
Yeah, and I mean, he had that one. Like, he had a couple pretty random tip-ins that I was almost like, did he tip that, or did a Buck accidentally tip that? And I think there was one of those in the fourth quarter. But and even with the Sixers getting 13 offensive rebounds, they only had 7 turnovers and they didn't take a lot of free throws. So they just took a ton of shots tonight. They took 103 shots versus the Bucks 95. So they ended up taking a ton of shots tonight. And so there were a lot of rebounds to be had. So actually the Bucks defensive rebound rate, 75.5%, which is pretty good. I mean, definitely better than average for them this year. And generally, that's totally fine, So as much as he was a factor on the offensive glass, overall, Bucks did okay. And I think in general, second game now in a row, we've seen Bobby Portis starting with Giannis, and I think a big part of that is simply because they just want to give Giannis some help on the boards, allow him to not have to play center. Again, tonight, against Drummond, I don't think Giannis is afraid of, Andre Drummond posting him up, but it obviously, he's a tenacious offensive rebounder, if nothing else. So yeah, I mean, I think you look at the numbers, felt like the Sixers were hitting everything early. Tyrese Maxey had a terrific, 17 points in the first quarter, I think. Mm-hmm. And Niang was 5 out of 7 from 3. I mean, there was a reason he was in the game so much, because he was shooting the ball so well. 5 of 7 from 3, 21 points. But it just felt like the shooting was very kind of early weighted. I think the Sixers have 37, 39 points in the first quarter, 39 to 30 led in the first quarter, and then they had a weird yo-yoing game. 39 points in the first quarter, 19 in the second quarter, then 35 in the third quarter, and then 16 in the fourth quarter as the Bucks outscored them 27 to 16 in the fourth. So, it felt like, especially after that initial burst, the Bucks started to just straight up switch more, which, given the lack of kind of, again, this is nowhere close to the quote unquote real Sixers team.
Yeah.
It felt like they just didn't have guys who could take advantage of kind of one-on-one matchups. You didn't have Embiid obviously down in the paint. If the Bucks switched a smaller guy onto a big, so it just felt like the Sixers kind of struggled when a lot of the open looks, kind of went away. And I give the Bucks credit, especially in the fourth quarter. It just felt like a lot of really difficult contested threes and jump shots from the Sixers. And Bucks points in the paint obviously has been an issue for the Bucks without Brook Lopez, and without the size they've been used to. You obviously have Portis back now, but Bucks 48 points allowed in the paint, not great, but 52 points in the paint scored, 120 offensive rating. Didn't feel like this was a great offensive game for the Bucks, especially with the way that Drew in particular was struggling. But overall, a really good offensive performance, especially given the way the Bucks have been playing offensively this year. And 39% from three, 15 to 39, solid. Yeah, you'll take that. That was pretty much where like an average game for them last year. But the way that they've been shooting, I thought was really nice to see. Not just the overall shooting numbers of the game, but when it mattered, Grayson Allen, I think Connaughton and Portis, I think all had big threes that kept the Sixers at arm's reach and eventually made this game not feel too dramatic in the end, which I think none of us wanted to see too dramatic of a game here at the end, given the circumstances.
Yeah, just on the off chance there are any Sixers fans that are listening to this podcast, to be clear, this isn't exactly a win that I think you're bragging about if you're the Bucks. Yeah. So don't get the wrong idea here when I slander Andre Drummond. I mean, this has been an ongoing thing for multiple years, so it has nothing to. It has nothing.
I mean, Sixers fans have been slandering Andre Drummond for years too, right? So I mean,
no, that's true. Yeah, they probably 100% agree. I just wanted to clear that up. But the Bucks are in Philadelphia, and when they're in Philly, I always enjoy seeing. Usually, our friend Eric will go and pick up a Philly cheesesteak. I reckon if I was in Philadelphia, I'd pick up a Philly Built Bar. They actually taste the same as everywhere else, but you're in Philly, and it's a great snack. So as we're on the road to Thanksgiving, all the good food and treats, there's plenty of them. But maybe you want a yummy dessert that isn't so full of calories and sugar. It's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert, in case you were wondering. So feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories. That's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. Replace the coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar. Or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of a raspberry pie. There's lots of good flavors to replace any pie. I just said pie about 17 times in the last 10 seconds. They're low calorie, low carb, low fat, and high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. Just go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And as I said, right at the top of the show, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. Like we've been saying here, if you want a second podcast to listen to, there's a bit going on in Packers land. I know we have a lot of Packers fans. Maybe listen to our friend Peter Bukowski over at Locked On Packers. He'll have you covered there. You mentioned Grayson Allen a couple of times there, and obviously he hit the big three, what felt like the final, nail in the coffin, whatever you want to call it, from the corner right in front of the Bucks bench. But geez, this guy's been consistent. I mean, you talk about all the injuries that the Bucks have had. Grayson Allen has probably been the Bucks' second best player this year. I don't even know if there's any dispute about that. The fact that he's been out there every night, he's scored double digits every single night. I think he's scored 20 plus in 3 straight games now. It hasn't always translated to wins, but I don't think it's necessarily his fault. There was some interesting conversation post-game around Grayson Allen. And I was enjoying, and you'll see this if you go on the Bucks social. I'm sure they'll post the clip eventually, or they would have by the time you're listening to this. But Grayson Allen's smile as he's talking about playing with Giannis just stuck out to me. And and I didn't get a chance to ask Grayson the question, but I wanted to ask him. There's dominant players around the league, but he's clearly been on teams where they've been on the other end of Giannis tonight, just physically overwhelming a team. And I wanted to know what it's like to be standing there and being on the same team, because one of the good answers that he gave is that when he was asked about being ready and being in the right spots and running to the corners, and he basically said, yeah, he goes, it's kind of hard sometimes because I see Giannis and I know that if he wants, he can just get a layup. So in my head, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, well, do I even need to go to the corner? Because you can just score anyway. But then he trusts us and we'll actually pass the ball there. So if you don't run to the corner, it's going to be a turnover and you'll look like an idiot. And it was just one of those funny comments that he is only 10 games or 11 games now into playing with Giannis. He's still very open about the fact that now he's just starting to feel comfortable about where to be, where Giannis can actually find him, and the fact that he has to stay on the move all the time. But yeah, he's just been great. He's been great. And honestly, defensively, I don't know if you've seen anything specifically, but we've seen him at times through sometimes necessity. He's had to defend, arguably the best guard on the opposition team. And it's not like he's a lockdown defender, but he's not. We've made the comparison before just with Bryn Forbes in terms of how he can get picked on. I don't think he's that guy either. I mean, I'm just really, really impressed with what he's been able to do so far.
Yeah, I think he has he's competitive enough defensively. Yeah. I think, does he navigate screens as well as you'd like? And maybe not. Yeah. Is he kind of the defensive playmaker that Dante DiVincenzo is? No, but he does make defensive plays, and they obviously need everybody to be committed to the defensive glass in order to sort of survive right now, given the lack of size that they are playing with frequently. And I think we've seen, him come in and that he had an important rebound late in the game. George Hill, we should just give a quick shout out. George Hill just
snatching it,
just like almost went over the back of Andre Drummond, and just kind of like ripped the ball out of his hands, which was a big play at the time. I forget if the Bucks were up 4 or what the margin was at that point, but yeah, I mean, I think with the guards, I think that's obviously a really important thing always, from a team defense, team rebounding standpoint, but especially right now when you're playing small, if you have guards that are willing to kind of battle a little bit, that's obviously really important. And, just 2 rebounds for him tonight. I think he's at like 4.5 or something like that for the season. He's at 4 rebounds per game of the season. But yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I think will be interesting to see, I mean, I think he's been, obviously the shooting has been great. He's been getting tons of open looks. I haven't looked at it. I'll try to look at it here while we have a moment. He was leading the league in wide open threes by like a big margin. He had like over 6 per game when I checked like a week ago. And I think last year the most anybody averaged was 4.5. And the Bucks were led last year by Giannis, who averaged 3 wide open threes per game for obvious reasons. So it's not like the Bucks have been this team that just manufactures wide open looks for like Bryn Forbes. Bryn Forbes had like, I think, under 2 wide open threes per game last year. So the chemistry obviously is really good right now. As far as, even early on here, I think knowing where to be, and defense is obviously really keying on Giannis, especially with, Chris out and Drew having been out for extended periods. So, I think he'll continue to obviously get more comfort and familiarity, but I thought that 3 he hit late, Yang was having to defend Giannis and, kind of fell down, I think, trying to sucker the refs into a push-off foul on Giannis. And, Allen did a nice job of sort of tracking Giannis's drive and kind of fading into the corner, wide open for that look. And, he buries it off a nice Giannis kick out. And, a fitting way to kind of cap this game, given that obviously Grayson Allen, 25 points, had his probably his most impactful game as a Buck so far. But I will call you out, Kane. He did have one single digit game. It was in the Detroit game, ironically. He only scored 8 points in 21 minutes. But other than that, yeah, he's been, for a guy who's obviously heavily dependent on perimeter shooting, been really impressive. Just his like kind of night to night consistency as far as just, I think he's I think it was said on the broadcast, one of only a few guys that has hit 2 threes in every game. So that level of consistency has been obviously really important, especially on a team that has not shot the ball consistently at all. But he's just obviously one guy that has, and he's at 64% true shooting right now, 41.5% from three on over 8 3-pointers attempted per game. Obviously, he's playing really big minutes right now, 29 minutes per game. 15.5 points per game. We'd expect that to come down over the course of the season when Chris comes back, when Brook comes back, when you have some more offensive options on the table. I don't know that he's going to play 29 minutes per game. Hopefully you get Dante back midseason, and that allows you to, play Grayson maybe a little bit less. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously that, we really like that acquisition when it happened, and he's been everything you could have hoped for and more.
Yeah, I normally, it's just, again, I don't want to be bashing on the Pistons too much here, but I normally erase those games from my memory, and I must have done that in this case. One thing that I found interesting that you said that, because I haven't looked at anything outside of just the raw 3-point numbers there, but with those wide open attempts, I think that bodes well for the future, right? If the fact that he's generating, or he's not generating, but the offense is able to generate that many open looks for him without Drew and Chris in the offense, that seems like a positive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, well, teams are going to
load up on Giannis no matter what.
Yes, but I was going to say, I mean, I think people probably become a little bit more aware of him as the season goes on. But I mean, it's pick your poison, right? I think if Giannis is, we saw it tonight. I mean, Giannis loves going from the left block baseline so much, and so often he scores anyway just because he's so strong and he can just bully people. But teams, they know that's coming. They load up. It's not to say it's like always Grayson Allen's guy, but when they really load up and bring the extra defender, whether they're bringing that defender from the baseline side or from the middle, it certainly does, collapse the floor, and somebody's going to be open, right? It may not always be Grayson Allen per se, but I think he's figuring out how to play off of Giannis. I think one thing I am curious to see is we really haven't seen Grayson serve as kind of more of a playmaker. I mean, I think he has some of that in his game. He's not a point guard, but I think that's an interesting thing that maybe sort of the next level that we'll see if it can be unlocked or not. Maybe it just doesn't happen, but can he unlock Giannis as a role man? Or is he just going to be, more of just that spot up type shooter, right? We know he can do that now. I think it'll be interesting to see if he can be that kind of second side pick and roll guy. I think where he's comfortable looking for his own shot out of pick and rolls. But that would be kind of next level if he can also use that to be a little bit more of a playmaker himself. I think he's only at like 1.5 assists per game so far this year. So obviously his focus has been on shooting, and it's working out quite well so far.
Forbesy could only dream of 1.5 assists per game.
Yeah, Frank. Seriously. And it's like 1.5 assists per month for Brim.
We love Bryn, by the way. We're not talking shit about him. By the way, there was that one play tonight where Grayson Allen was rolling to the basket, and I was sort of like, oh, he's about to throw a lob. I don't think we're seeing this, but no, he just shot a floater. And Giannis sort of jumped up. It would have been easy. But I want to talk about those lobs to Giannis, though. I tweeted something about the officiating. Bud was asked about it after the game. But when we were talking about the over and under for this team, I think it was 54.5 over at betonline.ag. You might be feeling a little bit nervous about that if you went the over at this stage. Maybe you're still confident they'll get rolling. Who knows? But you can check that out at betonline.ag, which remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. You can head to the new and updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive your bonus there. From basketball, football, baseball, postseason, that's done. Come on, we're going to update this. NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. So Bud was asked this post-game. There's a bit of people talking about it on Twitter. Drew Holiday just thought he was going to upgrade the NBA Finals play. He's like, I'm going to get a steal this time. And instead of your standard lob, I'm going to throw it off the glass in traffic to Giannis steaming down the lane. It was unbelievable. I was fired up when I saw that. Giannis maybe would have finished it, but Drummond gave him a big shove in the back when he was in the air. And he didn't even get free throws for it. And this happened a couple of times. I don't like this rule. And, Eric commented on it, said, okay, well, safety is actually the main concern. Yeah, I get that. You don't want to be shoving people when they're in the air. But I don't understand if it's going to be an easy lob and it's going to be an automatic 2 points. I don't know why it's side ball. I think this needs to change. I don't like it. Do you care about this at all, or is it just me?
I remember thinking about it back when, not in the moment, but after the value play,
Yeah.
and thinking like, well, what if Chris Paul had managed to push Giannis
Right. Yeah.
before he caught the ball, right? And I don't even know. Like, I mean, if you go back and watch it, like, when does Chris Paul start to push him relative to when he catches it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Remember offhand. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those rules. Like, I get it. I understand why. Like, if a guy doesn't have the ball and you foul him, like, that's itself isn't a free throw if you're not on the bonus. But yeah, that would have been a pretty fun play. I thought we might as well at this point talk about the other
Oh
alley-oop,
yeah.
which had a much better result. But I don't remember how much time was there. A minute left, something. It was literally as Ian Eagle was going into his Sixers really need to stop line, and then a second later, Drew just throws it over top. Giannis had George Niang fronting him, and basically just goes over top for a for him an easy two-handed alley-oop dunk. But I mean, from a just skill standpoint, to throw that pass and to have the coordination to catch, finish the way Giannis did, I mean, that is not easy. That is two elite players making the play. And you can kind of, I mean, we saw Chris last year Chris threw tons of alley-oops to Giannis, even from side out of bounds last year. He also, I would say, was very bold, including in late game situations, throwing lobs, some of which went very awry. But it was funny that Drew threw that one tonight, because it's like he threw it and I was like, man, that's a gutsy throw. But then it's like, yeah, pretty much the bar is impossibly high for is Drew Holiday going to be willing to throw an alley-oop to Giannis
Yeah.
in a big pressure moment situation? Like, he's pretty confident at this point. he's not, nothing's going to spook him after the alley-oop he threw in Game 5. One of the most consequential alley-oops in NBA history. I don't know where it would rank on all-time important alley-oops, so it's got to be right up near the top. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, they at least still have it a little bit there between in the alley-oop game.
Yeah, 59.8 seconds left. That made it 116 to 109. So it was a big bucket at that time. And as you pointed to, and this was something, Giannis spoke about post game, that has been a play that Chris has obviously done and with Giannis, and they've had pretty good chemistry with over the years. So Drew Holiday altogether, only 8 points. He had a couple of nice finishes, but yeah, I mean, he really is still just working his way back. He was 4 for 14 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3. And we saw again tonight with Drew Holiday, he only played 31 minutes. Giannis was up at 36. Bobby Portis actually said, I can't remember the last time I played this many minutes in a game. He said, this is unbelievable. He had a huge smile on his face. He was just loving it. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I started to get, people tweeting the Fire Bud stuff. The Fire Bud campaign was back for a little while in this game, Frank, if you can believe that. And a lot of it surrounded the third quarter minutes again. And we saw this in the Washington game. And again, I can't bring myself to get angry at Bud for these rotations right now, given the situation. But, we saw it. And I know, people were shocked. They thought that you were too hard on my guy, Justin Robinson. But look, again, tonight, I mean, he only played 11 minutes. He was minus 12, and that stretched at the end of the third quarter. It felt like the game was getting out of hand. The Bucks were comfortable, and then you had to try and keep your head above water with the Giannis off the floor, Drew off the floor, Grayson Allen off the floor, and they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't create anything. They couldn't score, even against a depleted Philadelphia team. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to blame Bud for that. I don't know, really, he could put Drew on the floor if he wanted to. You can't play Giannis 45 minutes. It's a difficult situation, but those minutes in back-to-back games late in the third quarter have been brutal.
Well, programming note here, Bobby Portis, last time he played 35 minutes was Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. He played 36.
Please, can we get regular season check, please? Let's see how quick you are.
But he did play 36 minutes in that Hawks game, in which he had 22 points. Obviously, a lot of Bobby chants that night for him. But yeah, I'm just scanning. He played 35 minutes in the loss in Dallas last year. I believe that was one that Giannis missed. He scored 20 points and had 14 rebounds, but 8 out of 19. That was the game where Chris was horrendous, and they just were leading for a while and then just completely just died in the fourth quarter. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it last game. I think the starting lineup last game, I think, seemed to be a very clear, start my best players type of lineup, and he did it again tonight. I think the upside is, takes Giannis, some of the pressure off Giannis to be defending big guys and be having to do all the work on the glass when you have Bobby out there. The other thing I think you kind of alluded to, though, with, Drew and Giannis overlapping a lot. I think, again, part of it's just because, I don't know, I think he's just sick of seeing Giannis have to, quarterback the offense from 30 feet out every time down the floor in like kind of random middle quarters and things like that. So trying to, I think, maybe put Giannis in more positions where you can be a little more of a role man and not having to carry that sort of point guard burden, which he's actually done a fair bit. But I mean, yeah, some of the lineups because of that, they're not great. But you look at the rotation again tonight. Only 3 guys on the injury report. Obviously, there are three very important guys in terms of Chris, Brook Lopez, and Dante. But only 9 guys played tonight, and I think kind of continuing some of the theme from Sunday. Tonight there was no Thanasis. Rodney Hood is healthy, but has been DNP CDing, so that's notable.
Not a good sign. Yeah.
And we didn't talk about Jordan Nwora, but Jordan Nwora actually, I thought, gave them a nice little bump, especially in the first half. Ojeleye obviously 4 for 4, including 3 triples, 8 rebounds, a steal, 11 points. Obviously, that was by far his best performance so far. Yeah, just Ojeleye, Nwora, Connaughton, and Justin Robinson still getting 11 minutes off the bench. Other than Robinson at this point, the other 3 guys, you could see them being rotation guys all year long, even when healthy. So, but I think, kind of consciously saying like, all right, for a second straight game, every starter played 30 plus minutes, which is interesting, right? I don't think we saw a lot of games like that last year because Brook didn't play huge minutes typically. But especially with, the shortage in the big man rotation, when Giannis and Bobby are starting together, obviously both those guys are going to have to play 30 plus minutes, if the game's close. So yeah, what a novel thought. Best players, maybe still some opportunities to play your best players in a more staggered way, but that's one of the trade-offs the Bucks are gonna have to figure out. And Giannis, we talked about his plus minus the other day, and his net sort of on-off rating plus 13 tonight, with him on the floor, -4 with him off the floor. So once again, when Giannis is there, good things tend to happen.
So we'll look ahead to a game against the Knicks, and we'll be back post-game, or we might be back post-game. I've actually got NBL Media Day tomorrow, Frank. First time I haven't had to do a Zoom thing. I'll actually be there. Our guy Dully is going to be there. It's going to be like old times. We'll be able to discuss the old Milwaukee, memories we've got there when he got traded away. But anyway, Dully will be there. It'll be good to catch up with him. But the Bucks will have the Knicks, and that'll be interesting to see because tonight you talk about the minutes on the front end of a back-to-back, and Bud kind of specifically around Giannis spoke about it tonight, the fact that, they're very conscious. They are very conscious of the wear and tear that he's playing through now and what he's going through. He did say that even after all these years, but Giannis is not exactly the best business partner when it comes to negotiating reducing minutes for him. He doesn't exactly want to come off the floor, and you can understand why. But thankfully, they banked the front end of this one. So we'll see. I mean, tomorrow night might be one of the situations. I know that they're not going to go into the game thinking they're going to lose, but maybe if they're down big at halftime or something, they will go into management mode there. I'm not 100% sure, but it'll be interesting to watch because he's obviously been doing a lot to start the season. But it's always fun at Madison Square Garden. Giannis has had some good memories, Frank.
Yeah. Some, like most great players, I think Giannis enjoys the stage of Madison Square Garden, and we'll see. I don't know. So often with these Bucks, with these games now, I just kind of like try to think, like, well, what's going to happen? It's like, well, are the Bucks going to shoot well or not? And previous years, including in the finals run, obviously they were a team that, even though they shot lots of threes, they could overcome bad shooting nights because of the size and offensive rebounding and just the individual talent and fact that Chris can go to work from mid-range and Giannis can obviously go to work in the paint. But right now it, certainly feels a lot more like, man, night to night, these games are going to come down to kind of, the Bucks actually make threes, or are they going to, shoot 28%? And if they're going to shoot 28%, you're probably not going to win a game at MSG with the fact that the Knicks are obviously playing at a pretty high level right now. So,
all right. Well, there's a bit of a revenge factor, perhaps.
Yeah.
Kind of an embarrassing loss last week after winning by 20 points. So maybe they'll be motivated there to bounce back from that one. Also, don't forget to check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast with me good mate Josh Lloyd. He'll keep you up to date with everything you need to know from a fantasy basketball perspective. So that's the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. Check that out. As far as Locked On Bucks goes, we thank you for listening again today. Subscribe for those watching on YouTube, or if you're listening and you haven't subscribed on YouTube, jump on, hit the button. Even if you only, watch one a week and listen to the others, we still really appreciate that. But for Frank and myself, the Bucks finally won. We're greedy here now. We're greedy here now. We expect wins all the time.
1 game winning streak. Woo! 1 game winning streak.
It's a streak. It's definitely a streak. I'm counting it. So Bucks and Knicks tomorrow, as we said. We'll be back at some point to wrap that up, whether it's tomorrow or the next day. But keep your eyes on the channel feeds there, and we'll have something. We'll have something going on for you guys. So we appreciate you listening. For Frank and myself, catch you next time.